Hello students, today we shall discuss about crystals and crystallization. You will observe the solid substances we obtain from nature. Some are crystalline and some are amorphous. That is, they are powdery form. So the crystalline substances like sodium chloride, potassium nitrate, like other salts, they are copper sulfate, they are all crystalline substances. They are obtained in crystalline form, but there are some compounds which remain in powder form. For example, if we take copper sulfate, hydrated copper sulfate, this is crystalline, but if we take anhydrous copper sulfate, that is, there is no water molecules, this is the anhydrous copper sulfate. This is the anhydrous copper sulfate and this is in powder form. So which are crystals? Crystals are the homogeneous solid with definite geometrical shape. Homogeneous solid means at each and every part of crystal there will be similar composition. Say this is the crystal of NaCl. At each and every point the composition of the crystal will be same. So this is the that means at each and every part the ratio of sodium and chlorine will be same. So this is the homogeneous solid with definite geometrical shape. That is, crystals have definite shapes. For all the substances, crystals are not of similar shape. For example, for sodium chloride we get cubic shaped crystal. For potassium nitrate we get prismatic crystal. This is needle shaped crystal. This crystal is like needle. For hydrated copper sulfate or blue vitriol we get rhombohedral crystal and the crystal is like this. And for ferrous sulfate 7H2O, that is the green vitriol, we get the crystal in octahedral form. This is the shape of the green vitriol crystal. So for different compounds the crystals will have different shape. Now how will we can generate crystal from any compound? First we have to make a saturated solution of that compound, then by different means we can generate crystal. Number one is cooling the saturated hot solution. If we make a saturated solution of any compound and this compound is heated, then we cool the saturated hot solution, then we will get the crystals of that compound. Number two is slow evaporation of solvent. Say the saturated solution of a compound is prepared and this compound and this solution is kept for a long day undisturbed. Then there will be slow evaporation of the solvent and we will get the crystals of the solute. Number 3 is cooling fused mass. If some substances are directly heated, then we obtain the fused mass, and this fused mass is if cooled, then sometime we will end with crystals. Number 4 is sublimation. There are some compounds which on heating from their solid state they are directly converted into gas form. There is no formation of liquid and this process is called sublimation. So when these gaseous compounds are cooled, when they are cooled, then there will be sometimes we obtain the solid as crystalline form, in crystalline form. So these are the procedures of formation of crystals. Now what is seeding? We are here taking a copper sulfate 5H2O, that is hydrated copper sulfate crystal. This is the blue vitriol crystal and this crystal is of well shaped and this crystal is suspended in a solution which is the saturated copper sulfate solution. This crystal is suspended in this solution by means of a thread and this thread is tied with a glass rod. This is the glass rod and thus the crystal is suspended in this solution for overnight. After that, we will observe there will be growth of the crystal. The crystal will be bigger in size. This is due to the growth of this crystal, and this growth of this crystal, this procedure is called seeding. That is, we are inducing here crystallization. This induced crystallization is called seeding, and for this induced crystallization purpose, the crystal we are using, this is called seed crystal. This crystal here is called seed crystal. Now, hydrated substances. Which substances are hydrated substances? The substances which remain attached with a definite number of water molecules. These are called hydrated substances. Though this attachment is very weak, but they always remain attached to a definite number of water molecules. They are called hydrated substances. For example, blue vitriol, copper sulfate 5H2O. This is blue in color, so this is called blue vitriol. Here copper sulfate remains attached to 5 water molecules. This number will be always same. This number cannot be changed. So a definite number of water molecules remain attached to copper sulfate. So copper sulfate is hydrated substance. Similarly, sodium carbonate 10H2O, this is called our washing soda. Ferrous sulfate 7H2O, this is green vitriol, green in color. Sodium sulfate 10H2O, this is Glauber's salt. Magnesium sulfate 7H2O, this is Epsom salt. Zinc sulfate 7H2O, this is white vitriol, as this is white in color. All these substances are hydrated substances. Now, what is water of crystallization? There will be a definite number of water molecules which remain loosely bound to a substance, and these water molecules are integral part of the crystal of the substance. Those are called water of crystallization. For example, copper sulfate 5H2O. There are 5 water molecules. These water molecules are loosely bound to copper sulfate, and these water molecules are the integral part of the copper sulfate crystal. If we take copper sulfate crystal, then in the crystal, inside the crystal, we will obtain 5 water molecules. That is, they are the integral part of the crystal of copper sulfate. So these 5 water molecules are called water of crystallization. Now there will be loose attachment between the water molecules and the substance, such that if we heat the hydrated substance over 100 degree, then we will obtain the anhydrous copper sulfate, and the 5 water molecules will be removed in the form of vapor. This can be shown by experiment. If you take some copper sulfate, hydrated copper sulfate in a test tube, if you heat the test tube, then at the cooler part of the test tube, that is at the mouth of the test tube, we will obtain some water droplets, and these water droplets are generated from the water of crystallization, which are removed in the form of vapor, and at the cooler part, this vapor will be converted into liquid water, and we will end with the anhydrous residue copper sulfate. This is colorless and powdery form. So at the in the test tube, we will obtain anhydrous copper sulfate in powder form, and this is white or colorless. Now if we add some water to this anhydrous copper sulfate, you will again get this hydrated copper sulfate, that is blue vitriols. That is, this procedure is reversible. So these water of crystallizations are very much important, as they give a definite shape to the crystals. So when there are now water molecules, water of crystallization in copper sulfate, the copper sulfate molecule is crystalline. But when the water of crystallizations are removed, then we get the anhydrous copper sulfate, which is in powder form. So the water of crystallizations are necessary for the crystalline nature of the compound. And secondly, these water molecules are also important as they impart color to the substance. Here copper sulfate is blue color due to the 5 water molecules. When the water molecules are removed, then they are colorless. So, but there are some crystals like sodium chloride, potassium nitrate. This is the formula of sugar. These are all crystalline form, but there are no water of crystallization. So it is not necessary for any crystal that there should be water of crystallization, but water of crystallization is necessary to impart crystalline nature, to give crystalline nature to any substance. Now determination of percent of water of crystallization. What percent of water will be present in a substance? That can be determined by this procedure. First we take some crystals and the weight of the crystals are taken, say a gram. Now the crystals are heated and we will observe there will be continuously loss in the weight of the crystals. After certain time the weight will be constant, that is during heating there will be loss of the water molecules. More and more water molecules are lost, more and more decrement in their weight. After certain time all the water molecules will be lost, then we get the constant weight and this weight say b gram. So the loss of weight, that is the weight of the lost water molecules, that is a minus b gram. Now from a gram crystals we obtain a minus b gram water. So from 100 gram crystals we contain a minus b by a into 100, that is the percent of water crystallization. So from this formula we can determine the percentage of water of crystallization in any crystal. Now anhydrous substances. Anhydrous substances are those which do not contain any water of crystallization. They can be formed from the hydrated substances when they lose their water molecules. Say copper sulfate, when lose their water molecule we get anhydrated copper sulfate. Or sometimes some gases they are called anhydrous, like anhydrous HCl, anhydrous ammonia, as these gases do not contain any moisture or any water molecules, so they are anhydrous. Now how will we get anhydrous substances from hydrous substances? Number one is direct heating. If we directly heat the hydrated substances, then the loosely bound water molecules will be removed, then we get anhydrous substances. Number two is heating in hot and dry air. Hot and dry air means there is no moisture in air or very few moisture in air. So from hydrated substances the water molecules will be removed by this air, then we get anhydrous substances. When the hydrated substances are heated in vacuum, then we will also get anhydrous substances. Number four is using dehydrating agent. There are some compounds which can absorb moisture or water molecules. So when the like concentrated H2SO4, when the hydrated substances are kept in contact with the dehydrating agent like concentrated H2SO4, they can absorb water molecules. From hydrated substances we get anhydrous substances. Now what is decrepitation? If you take some NaCl crystals in a test tube and heat the test tube, then you will notice some crackling sound. This is called decrepitation. This crackling sound is generated due to the breaking of the bigger NaCl crystals into smaller crystals. Now properties of salts. Some salts may be efflorescent, some are deliquescent, some are hygroscopic. These are properties of salts. Efflorescence. Efflorescence is a phenomena by which when some hydrated materials are kept in contact with dry air for very short time, then there will be loss of the water of crystallization from the substances. This phenomena is called efflorescence, and thus those materials which can lose their water molecules, they are called efflorescent materials. For example, hydrated substances, these are kept in contact with dry air, that is air that contain very less amount of moisture, then the hydrated substances will lose their water molecules and we get anhydrous substances. This phenomena is called efflorescence. For example, sodium sulfate NH2 in crystalline form, when kept in contact with dry air, then we get sodium sulfate anhydrous. All the 10 water molecules are removed. Here we use minus sign, that means water molecules are removed and we get the powder form of sodium sulfate. Now, washing soda is kept in contact with dry air. We will end with monohydrated sodium carbonate and 9 water molecules will be removed, but 1 water molecule remains attached with the sodium carbonate. Similarly, Epsom salt magnesium sulfate 7H2O in contact with dry air, monohydrated magnesium sulfate is formed and 6 water molecules are removed. So, for the efflorescent materials, the vapor pressure should be higher than the atmospheric vapor pressure. For efflorescent material, vapor pressure is higher than atmospheric vapor pressure. As atmosphere, there is very less atmospheric vapor, because the vapor pressure in atmosphere is dry, there are less moisture in atmosphere, so the vapor pressure is low. For the water salts, there is greater vapor pressure, so the water molecules will go from the higher vapor pressure to the lower vapor pressure. From higher vapor pressure, they are going to the lower vapor pressure, the water molecules. So, the waters are removed from the salt to the atmosphere, that is dry air. Number 2 is deliquescence. Deliquescence is the phenomena by which when some materials are kept in atmosphere, they can absorb moisture from the atmosphere and becomes moist, and after some time they will be soluble in the moisture and form the saturated solution. This phenomena is called deliquescence material. Deliquescence, and the materials are called deliquescent materials. For example, calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, ferric chloride, sodium hydroxide, caustic potash, zinc chloride, all are deliquescent materials. That is, when these materials are kept in contact with atmospheric air at room temperature, then they will absorb moisture from atmospheric air and becomes moist, and ultimately they will form saturated solution with the moisture. Now, if we take some table salt, that is the salt we use in cooking purpose. Table salt means sodium chloride. This is not deliquescent material. Sodium chloride is not deliquescent material. But if you take some table salt and you keep this salt in presence of atmosphere, then after some time, if the atmosphere is humid, after some time you will observe the table salt becomes soluble and form solution. Why? Because table salt, actually we use the table salt, this is actually the mixture of sodium chloride with some amount of calcium chloride and magnesium chloride. These remain as impurity in sodium chloride, and these are, we know, deliquescent materials, so they can absorb moisture from humid air and becomes dissolved in the moisture. So there will be formation of solution. Now how will we get the pure NaCl? We make table salt, saturated solution of table salt, and dry HCl gas is passed over this saturated solution. Then the pure NaCl crystals will be precipitated out, and by filtration we get the NaCl crystals, and these crystals are washed with water and then ethanol alcohol. Then we will get pure NaCl crystals. They are not deliquescent materials, so they will remain as it is, that is as in solid form, even in presence of humid air or atmospheric air. Now hygroscopy. Hygroscopy is the phenomena by which when some materials are kept in contact with atmospheric air, they can absorb moisture from air but they cannot form saturated solution. This phenomenon is hygroscopy, and the materials are called hygroscopic materials. For example, concentrated H2SO4, quicklime, calcium oxide, phosphorus pentoxide, silica gel. They can absorb moisture from air, atmospheric air, but they cannot form their solution. This is the difference from the deliquescent materials. Deliquescent materials, hygroscopic materials, both can absorb moisture from air, but deliquescent materials form their saturated solution, whereas hygroscopic material cannot form their saturated solution. Now, drying agents and dehydrating agents. From the name, it is clear that both the agents can absorb water molecules, but there is some difference between drying agents and dehydrating agents. Drying agents are those which can absorb moisture from any substance or from atmosphere. For example, calcium chloride, zinc chloride, P2O5, all the hygroscopic materials like P2O5, calcium oxide, silica gel, concentrated H2SO4, sodium sulfate, magnesium sulfate, all are drying agents. Drying agents because they can absorb moisture from any substance. Whereas dehydrating agents are those which can absorb water molecules even when the water molecules are chemically bound to any compound. For example, concentrated H2SO4. They can remove water molecule even when the water molecules remain chemically bound. Whereas drying agents can only absorb moisture but not any chemically bound water molecules. Number 2 is drying agents are used to dry gases. For example, when we want to dry HCl, then the HCl gas is passed over concentrated H2SO4. We know concentrated H2SO4 can absorb moisture from HCl, then HCl will be dried. When we want to dry ammonia, as ammonia gas is basic in nature, so we have to pass ammonia gas over calcium oxide, as this is also basic, then so there will be no chemical reaction between them. Thus ammonia gas can be dried. Similarly, if we want to dry some liquids, these liquids are mixed with calcium chloride or zinc chloride or sodium sulfate, and they are kept overnight. Then the liquids will be dried, and by filtration we can get the pure liquid. When we want to dry some solids, then these solids are taken in desiccator. What is desiccator? Desiccator is a glass container. There are two parts. In one part we are taking some drying agents, and in the another part we are taking some substances which we want to dry, and there is some knob in between the two parts. Then by adjusting knob we can adjust the power of the drying agents. Thus, by keeping any substances in desiccator, any solid substance, we can keep dry the solid substances. So drying agents are also called desiccating agents. In desiccator we can use calcium chloride, zinc chloride, calcium oxide, silica gel, sodium sulfate, etc. Whereas dehydrating agents, those are used to remove chemically bound water molecules. For example, we want to remove the 5 water molecules, water of crystallization from copper sulfate, as these water molecules are here chemically bound to copper sulfate. So here we use concentrated H2SO4, and if we heat, then we observe 5 water molecules will be removed. So concentrated H2SO4 is dehydrating agent, as it can remove the chemically bound water molecules. Number 3 is drying agents are associated with physical change. Drying agents can remove moisture from any substance, so this is one physical change. Whereas dehydrating agents can remove chemically bound water molecule, that involves chemical reaction, so this is a chemical change. These are the differences of drying agents and dehydrating agents. Okay, thank you.